Hey, welcome back everyone to A Gentleman's Life. It's late June, so I thought the next video before I move on with anything else would be good to do a state of the collection update, since the last update I did was in January. So I am going to switch the camera around and we will do a state of the collection. And since my collection is all laid out on the table right now, I am just wearing the Apple Watch, which I may or may not make a video about because I don't really think of it as a watch, because that's not really what it is. It's more of a electronic accessory or mini computer or whatever you want to call it, but watch it is not. So I'm going to flip the camera around and let's take a look at the collection as it stands today. Alright, so here we are, everybody. And here's my collection as it stands right now, and I'll break it out into categories, kind of. I've got my diver and work watches up in the top left. I've got the military sub-collection here on the top right, my chronographs on the bottom left, and then the random stuff on the bottom right. So we'll kind of break it down like that. So first and foremost is my divers and work watches, and I've narrowed it down right now to 3. So I have one of the longest standing ones, which is the Tudor Pelagus, one of my go-to work watches. I love the just the design quality, how simple it is, and everything is designed around the purpose it's meant for. Titanium keeps it pretty light for its size, although it's got a little bit of heft to it for a titanium watch, being that 42mm. I've talked about this one before in a bunch of videos, and this one's not really going anywhere. It's one of my favorites. And as we go forward, I apologize about the camera. I'm just using the iPhone right now as a camera because my MacBook Pro is out for the count at the moment, so got to live with the phone for the camera at this time. Now, along with the Pelagus, I also have the Omega Speedmaster. And this was the last pre-ceramic version, so it's the only pre-ceramic version that has the coaxial movement in it. This is the one for Bond nerds that Daniel Craig wore in his first Bond movie. I absolutely love it just because of the way it fits on the wrist. I also like the mixture of tool-like watch with some little classy design details that I think really bring out the ability to kind of dress it up or down as you like. So I really love this one as well. And it works great on rubber, on NATOs, on leather, on the bracelet. It's one of the best bracelets that I've ever come across on this watch. So I don't expect this one's going to go anywhere anytime soon either. And then the newest of my work watches, but no less loved, is the Zen. This is the 856S UTC. So it gives you that second time zone, as you can see there with that inner ring with the 24 hours. I love how they put the UTC in yellow and then like just a little yellow triangle on the UTC hand, and the rest of it's blacked out. The S is for the DLC or PVC coated version. Now this watch also, they do a chemical hardening process on it after coating it, or in this regular stainless steel version just gets the chemical hardening process that makes this watch much harder. And as you can see so far, although I've only had it for a little while, I mean, no scratches, dings, or anything on the case. And I don't baby it. I mean, I'm not hard on it, but I don't baby it or try to be really nice to it either, so it's holding up very well. I love the classic pilot watch design, the big, broad sword hands, the 12369 numerals, and then the really subtle date window down to 4 o'clock. Just design-wise, I think this is a great watch, and I love it for work. Does great. So another really great one. And then going from there into the chronographs, I've got essentially what I call the 2 space chronographs, and then my 2 dressier chronographs, or complication chronographs, if you will. So the first of these, this is a late 60s, I think it's either a 68 or a 69, Seconda. So this is one of the watches that was made at the first Moscow watch factory for the Russian pilots and cosmonauts. As you can see right here, the made in USSR. So I found this one at with a antique and vintage dealer in London, and got it there. I just really like the layout of it. I think it's really nice, and I love the color scheme with that kind of teal and red. So that's really nice. And what I wanted to do is essentially have a pair, when paired with the Speedmaster, that would be one of the Russian cosmonaut watches and then one of the American. So I picked vintage Russian for that watch. And then, as you guys know, I have a modern 2016 Omega Speedmaster, which I absolutely adore. And funnily enough, since I got the Speedmaster, all of the other chronographs have been pretty neglected as far as getting wrist time, because I love this watch so much, and it's a sign that it's the right watch for you and you're really wearing it that much. I'd say the three watches I wear the most are the Pelagus, the Zen, and the Speedmaster. Those are my three main go-to watches. So absolutely love this one. That one's not going anywhere. Now I also have, as a kind of a complication that's always interested me, the Christopher Ward single pusher. It is large, but the classic design makes it work. And I've always loved the idea of the single pusher chronograph complication and taking a chronograph and putting it into a single button. So I really like that. Seeing as how with the Speedmaster I've been wearing the other chronographs less, I'm looking at possibly letting go of one of my 4 chronographs, and the Christopher Ward would probably be the first one I would consider letting go. Even though it's got that single pusher complication, I, no matter what, keep the Speedmaster, and I like the idea of having these 2 halves of the space race. And I also absolutely love the next watch, and I love the complications with it as well. So most likely, if I choose to get rid of a chronograph, it will be the single pusher. And to be honest, it really, for me, comes down to the size. I do like, and the Speedmaster and the Zenith and the Russian Seconda have all reminded me how much I like that smaller size in the watches. And really, this is bigger than the Pelagus, and the Pelagus is about as big as I really like. The only reason this has been okay is simply because the design makes it not seem as big as it really is. And I love the internals of this watch, absolutely beautiful. But because of the Speedmaster, I'm just not wearing it very much, so I may choose to let that go. And then the last chronograph is the Zenith El Primero, the Chronomaster. This is one of the last ones that was made before they discontinued it for a little while, with the 410Z movement. So it's got that high beat El Primero movement, triple date with the moon phase, and then of course the chronograph feature. And I really love this watch. It's again a reasonable size, pretty small. I love the stepped bezel it's got with the multiple steps. I love the rectangular pushers. On eBay recently, I finally was able to find an original buckle. So I ordered that on eBay from Switzerland and got an original buckle for it, which is great. And then when you flip it over and you see the internals, it is an absolute beauty. And I love this as it has the heritage of being, you know, having the lineage of being one of the first, or being the first automatic self-winding chronograph movement, with the first version of this movement. So I really love that. And this gives me that moon phase, and I've always wanted to make sure I have a moon phase in there too. So the high beat, the moon phase, and the triple date all really appeal to me, and I think this design was done really well. And then I've been working on a military collection. So of that, I'll go right to left this time. This one is one I may actually let go. This is a recent limited edition, I think it was 600 pieces, remake of a watch Marathon made back in the 80s that was a pilot watch for the Air Force. I really like it. I love the shape of the case and how the bezel is integrated. But again, I don't wear it a whole lot, and it doesn't fit as importantly with my military collection as everything else I have and want to get for that collection. So that may or may not go, depending. Now, the rest of my military collection, what I want to do is build up a collection of 4 or 5 watches that cover all the major wars of the 20th century. So if we look here, I don't have anything from World War One right now, so I want to find a trench watch from World War One. Partially because that's the watch that started really the wristwatch as a normal use instead of the pocket watch. What I do have here is a watch from World War II. Now this is a 1945 produced Elgin A11, and A11 was the designator for the common wristwatch for GIs during World War II. And this is an all original example made by Elgin, which was one of the major US producers of watches in the early 20th century. Their factory was actually only about half an hour from where I grew up until it closed in the second half of the 20th century. But I really like the coin-edged bezel. I like the 12 hours and then the seconds on the outside and the big sword hands. And it's an excellent original example. On the back, you can kind of see through there, you have all the original military markings on it from World War II. Let me see if I can get that out and we'll have a look. So here you can see Air Force, U.S. Army, before the Air Force was a separate branch. Type A11, then the spec number, which lets you know which one it was, the 942783-4-B. As far as the Air Force serial number, you can see it says 45-33740. So that was the number for 1945. That's how you know it was produced in 1945. And then the ordnance number for the Department of Defense, and Elgin for the company that made it. So it has all those original U.S. Military required markings on it, which is really fantastic. The follow-on to this was the A17, which was one that was produced during the Korean War. So I'd like to find one of those. I would like to find an A17, ideally from Belova, which is, of course, another one of the U.S. makers from back then. And then the trench watch from World War I would like to get a Waltham, which was the other major producer in the United States at the time, in the first half of the 20th century, of mechanical wristwatches. So for World War I, World War II, and then the Korean War, I would have one watch from each of the major U.S. producers of wristwatches. And then what I have here is Vietnam era, and it was when soldiers and airmen started moving to purchasing their own watches more often, and this was a watch commonly bought by guys who were in Vietnam. This is a 1976 version, but this is the Seiko 6105, and a lot of the soldiers, Marines, and so on in Vietnam would actually buy these watches and then bring them home with them. Now mine was bought by an airman while stationed in Florida, so it wasn't actually bought in Vietnam, but he was at a base in Florida during the Vietnam era and purchased this watch there, because this is a 8119, which is the U.S. serial number. So you get 6105-8110, which means it's for the Asian market, and then you have 6105-8119, which is for the U.S. market, and this is an 8119. But again, this is kind of that Vietnam era watch, one that was commonly purchased and worn in the field by guys during Vietnam. So that's where that one fits in. So you can see I have a couple watches really that I want to fill in the military sub collection, and this one may go to make room for some of those old vintage ones. And then lastly, I just kind of have my random ones. Here I've got the Marathon Rangeman. I use this when I go out backpacking and hiking and things like that, so that's really what that's for. And then I have just kind of a random funsy watch, which is my Swatch System 51. And sometimes when it's just a lazy night in after work, I might put this on because it's super comfortable, lightweight, something a bit different. I love this silicone band, actually. It's very comfortable. And that's just kind of a nice watch to lounge around the house in sometimes. And then lastly is actually the watch that got me back into wearing watches, funnily enough. So I just haven't gotten rid of it. And this is actually an ESQ, which is made by Movado quartz. Nothing special. But when I joined the military and graduated from training, for the first Christmas after that, my parents got me this watch to wear with my dress uniform. And that's kind of what got me interested in wearing watches again. What was that now? About 7 years ago now, 6-7 years ago now. And that's kind of what got me started on this whole wanting to have watches again. So I've held on to this ever since, just because it's kind of what what got me into it. And yep, I didn't know it at the time. I just told them a style I wanted, and they picked something out for me. But this is essentially a Cartier tank homage, a quartz one, that they picked out because it was based on the style I wanted at the time for a dress watch. And yeah, it's just kind of a nostalgia factor. They got it for me for the first Christmas after getting through, you know, basic training and training for my job, and got me back into wearing watches. So I have that nostalgia factor of that one, and it just kind of stays in the collection as well. So that currently is the current state of my collection. Possibly the single pusher might go, and possibly the marathon might go as well. Other than that, I'm really happy with the state of my collection. I don't really expect anything in the way of incoming or outgoing watches beyond that. At some point in the future, if career change or financial situation is certain, I may look at adding another watch up there, another GMT. I'm looking at possibly making career change, job change about a year and a half, 2 years from now. So I'm trying not to make any big purchases until then, until I know for sure what's going on, what my situation is. But if I get lucky or find the right job and I have the money and the occasion is right, I might go for that GMT, the Rolex GMT Master, the BL&R, because I would love to have that watch. But otherwise, other than the two vintage pieces here I would like to get at some point, and I'm in no rush. Really nothing I'm thinking about changing right now. I'm really happy with how the collection looks. So I hope you all enjoyed the video. Until next time.